everybody, welcome back to Men Need to Be Heard. It is Dan, and I have got a show for you today. I've been really looking forward to this one because, well, my guest is my brother from another mother. Yep, I'm going to say that.
Yes, sir.
So let me actually bring him right on. So let me jump to here. So this is my friend Kumar Persad. Hopefully I said that right.
Yes, you did.
And Kumar is the author of a brand new book called Low Battery. I love this title, by the way. I have to tell you, I love this title. Low Battery, a manual for men. And you just
One-stop shopping.
yeah, you released it what, about 2-3 weeks ago, I
La-
believe?
no, last Wednesday,
Just last Wednesday, and it is
and it's already
already
a number.
number one on Amazon.
Yeah.
That is awesome, my friend. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Kumar reached out to me, and I reached out to him on TikTok. We were chit-chatting, and I had to get him on. I had to. And I've been reading the book, and we were talking off air before we came on about it, and I'm like, I had always had an intention of writing a book. I don't need to write it anymore because Kumar's already written it. There's nothing I can add to this book. So if you're watching this,
Maybe a version 2.
maybe, or we could collaborate on it, right?
There you go.
I will tell you, and we're going to get into the nitty gritty on the book, but I've read, God, hundreds, if not thousands of books on relationships, interacting men and women, what men go through. You know, those of you that are regular watchers of mine know that I'm a trainer and a strength and conditioning coach. So I'm well versed in biology and all that stuff. I will have to say, I would put this, honestly, top 5 of the books, maybe top 3 of books I've ever read.
Wow.
I honestly say that because, and I don't say that lightly, I might add. And I'm just so you all know, I'm not saying it because he's sitting right in front of me, okay? The reason I like it so much is you're honest and telling men what they need to hear. See, one of my approaches has always been men need to be told what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And by the way,
Absolutely.
I would make the same argument for women too. And you do that, and you do it in a way that is constructive. It's positive. It's, I feel, uplifting, but it's educational. So let's kind of dive into that. Well, first of all, Kumar, tell us a little bit about yourself because you're a pretty awesome guy.
So, I was born and raised in the Caribbean, believe it or not. I grew up, as I said in my book, one of 8 children. My parents were sugarcane farmers back in the Caribbean, and I moved to Canada when I was about 17. A couple of different reasons for it. One was, there was just no opportunities in Trinidad. I didn't want to be a sugarcane farmer. So when I was 17, I decided my brother was living in Toronto, and I wrote to him. Yeah, back then we were. So I wrote to him and asked him if he would consider sponsoring me going to Canada. So I moved to Canada, and I lived in Canada for probably about 13 or 14 years, educated myself in Canada. I actually have an associate's degree in industrial electronics. And I got involved at the very early stages of GPS, not your GPS on your phone. We're talking commercial GPS. When GPS was just a thing. And I got a job with a GPS company, and they actually moved me to the US, like back in '99. So I lived for about 16 years in the United States, went through a couple of marriages and all of that, stemmed out a lot of from what came from this book. And then I moved to Mexico, and I lived in Mexico for the last several years. 2 years ago, I moved to Panama. So now I live in the mountains of Panama.
That is awesome. I mean, you're well traveled, I guess is the way to put it.
Very much so, brother. And it's nice having multiple citizenships.
Is it? It's funny because I've been to most of the places that you've lived in, and you meet some amazing people in all of them. And I do think that kind of shapes our life, and
Absolutely.
it shapes who we become. So kudos to you for all of that. How is Panama, by the way? That's one country I've never been to.
I will tell you. So Panama City, it feels very much like a smaller version of Miami.
Really?
Yeah. So Panama has about 4 million people living in it. 1.4 million live in Panama City. Once you get out of the city, brother, the country is stunning. When I tell you stunning, it is completely green anywhere you drive. You drive from one end of the country to the other, and it's like you drive with your mouth hanging open going, wow.
Wow.
There is one area Dan, that it's close to David, so it's on the western side of the country. You look off to your right and you see this monumental waterfall way up in the mountains that you can actually see from the highway.
Wow. See, I'm going to have to make a trip down there. Maybe we can go have a beer or something.
If you come, I will tell you, get a rental car and plan to stay 2 weeks because there is no way you will cover Panama in a week. It's not like Mexico. Like I said before, I lived in Mexico. They were really hardcore tourism, and Panama doesn't really care about tourism. They do, but they don't, right?
Hmm.
So there's so much untouched
Wow.
beaches. There are so many little villages, and there's so many microclimates here. You choose where you want to live.
Oh,
Like I live in
beautiful.
the mountains. It never gets hotter than 74
Wow. And I would
on
have
a hot
uh,
80 degrees.
I would have thought that was subtropical, like 85, 90, like the Caribbean.
Tell me about it. It's literally same latitude as of the country I
I
came
was going to
from.
say, yeah.
And it's cool. Like I put on a sweatshirt this morning. My wife's laughing at me.
Well, I notice you're in long sleeves now. So I'm like,
Yeah,
and I'm in short sleeves. It's 95 where I am right now. So,
that's crazy.
all right, let's dive into Kumar, the book, because, like I said, this is one of the best books I've ever read. Why don't you just kind of, first of all, just give us the highlights of what the book is about?
Absolutely. So what really spawned this book? By the way, I do have my first book that I released a couple of years ago is called Lemon Moon: When the Honeymoons Turn Sour, and it was a reflection of my second failed marriage, and I literally took my ex-wife on a honeymoon, and we had a great time, and gave each other a hug and says, "Have a happy life." But I've been meaning. I went through some challenges with my health, and I realized that when I decided to sit down and write this book, I had to piece pieces of information from all over the place.
Hmm.
So what I did with this book is I tried to save everybody the time that I would had wasted trying to pull information, piecing things together, because there's no one place that I could have gone and said, let me go to the library or let me go on Amazon and buy a book and hey, there is some guidelines here that I can follow. So that's what I tried to do. So the book covers everything from major things that we don't really talk about. Like I started off right away from sex. Let's talk about sex. Nobody wants to talk about sex. Even people, I'm a relationship coach, and husband and wives don't talk about sex.
No, they don't.
One of the most
No, they don't.
important things in their relationship, right? And so much shame. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Right.
So I went down the road of sex. Then I broached the subject of porn because I used to watch a lot of porn, and I didn't realize what damage porn was doing to me. And then I started researching all the damage that porn was doing to me and how accessible it is. And when I started going down that rabbit hole, then the information I was finding was scary.
Hmm.
When I found out that children 7, 8 years old are now accessing porn 24 hours a day on a smart device and their parents have no idea because
No,
their parents are
they
living
have
in
absolutely
ignorance.
no idea whatsoever what's going on. Nope.
None. You ask them and they'll tell you, no, my child doesn't look at porn. Do they have a smart device? Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they're
look at
looking at
porn.
it. Yep.
Yeah. So then I started looking at the average age of addiction. And I was blown away because I wasn't introduced to porn until, I mean, I grew up in the 80s. Porn for me was a magazine that I found under one of my brother's bed.
Yep.
That was it.
Yep.
And to have 24 hours in your hand, I was 17 or 18 the first time I saw porn. So nobody discusses what it's doing to a child's mind. What's it doing to men's hormone levels? And as that child starts growing, what happens to him or her? So I went after that. Then I started talking about, I started pulling the pieces of everything that I had experienced, I had learned about myself, and decided to put it all in one place. From dating, how to date properly, the dating challenges, especially for middle aged guys like us who might have gone through a divorce or going through a divorce, been out of the game for 20, 15, 20, 25 years. We come out and we still think this is how it is. And it's nothing like that. The landscape has changed.
It is. It is night and day different from when
Whoa.
I mean, I think back to the 80s and then the 90s I dated, and then in the late 2000s I dated. I wouldn't even fathom what it's like right now. I don't
Yeah,
want to
it's
know.
crazy.
It's things have changed so much with that. And that's something, when I was reading the book that I was really picking up on was how much of a change. It got me thinking, right? That's one of the things I love about this book is that it makes you think, right?
And that's really what I wanted to do.
Yeah, it's when you're talking about the dating, I was thinking back to because we're about the same age, the early '80s when I was, a teenager and
Hmm.
dating, and it got me thinking about all right, what was it like then? What was I doing? How were the women I was dating? That kind of stuff, and then I was comparing it to 15 years later when I started dating again, and that kind of it
Yeah.
really got me thinking, and it got me thinking about how much I had changed. And even now at 60, I didn't realize until I started reading this book, to be honest with you, really the depth of that change, right? For me. Um, and same thing like porn. Porn has never been my thing. It's just I always look at like you talk about I remember you talked about in the book strip clubs, right? I think they are the biggest, dumbest waste of money in the history
Yep.
of mankind. I always liken it to why would you go to a restaurant, order, let's say, the best steak on the menu, look at it,
And just look at it.
and leave? What a waste of the last time I was, and you got me thinking about that. I'm like, when was the last time I was in a strip club? I can tell you, it was June of 1991 because my best
Wow.
friend got married, and that's where the bachelor party was.
Right.
And I didn't enjoy that experience as far as being in strip club. We had a great night just hanging out, but it just shows you that the power of this book is that it gets you thinking and gets you analyzing yourself, and I think that's a key component. And you talked about things like porn, and you talked about dating. That's a huge, I'll call it chapter. Is it more than a chapter? I don't remember. Um, that could be a whole book, just that section, right?
Absolutely.
But
And then there's the one that we talked about, the vetting, right?
yep,
And I made a point of that. If we stop and think about it, like you said, Dan, I wanted the book to force people to think. Government jobs and Fortune 500 companies, high end, high profile government jobs, Fortune 500 companies who are looking for high level, high value executives. They spend 6 months vetting clients,
mm-hmm.
potential employees for a temporary position.
Yep,
And yet we go and meet people randomly, and because of physical attraction or loneliness or whatever our story is, we jump into a relationship that could last lifetimes and we know nothing about a person. And then we're surprised when we start learning a year or 2 years into the person, like, oh shit, who is this person?
it's funny that you said that because I was thinking about just as you were talking about it, something you had in the book, and I'm paraphrasing it because I don't remember the exact wording, but you're basically saying, date one, you go out to dinner. Date two, you have sex. Date three, you're married,
In a
basically.
relationship. Yeah, yeah.
And
You're in a relationship.
it happens all the time. The guys that I coach, I can't tell you the number of them that have had that exact scenario.
Yeah,
And one of the
absolutely.
things when I'm coaching guys is I always tell them is number one, don't have sex on the first date. I even say,
Or the second,
or
or the third
or
for
the
that matter.
third, I'm like at
Yeah.
least 5 to 10 before,
Yeah.
and they look at me like I had a full head of hair again. It's but it when you as a guy set that expectation of yourself, I'm not going to even try.
Yeah.
It enables you, at least I feel, as a man, to focus on is this person bringing me value, and seeing that for what it is. And I think it helps them also because if I were dating now and I'm not, I would make it very clear. Look, I have no. It's not that I don't think you're attractive or any of that because you don't want to make them feel bad. But I
Right,
would
right.
say to them, the chances of us getting into bed are absolutely zero for a few dates. And I might say, 5, 10 days. I don't know that I even put a number on it, to be honest with you. Because again, when I was 18, oh hell, day one, baby. If I could get you in bed, I was doing it. And I'm not saying that to
And most of
brag.
us never grow out of that. Most
I
of
was
us
a
never grow out
child,
of it.
right? I was
Yeah.
a child. I didn't know better.
Mhm.
Now at 60, as I look at that, is I'm not looking to get laid. I'm looking to have a relationship, to
Absolutely.
have a connection, and in the book, I think that's something, whether you know it or not, I think that's one of the strengths of the book is that you're teaching guys how to make a connection as opposed to,
Absolutely.
I'll even call it a relationship. Because you and I have a relationship, right? We've met,
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
buddies, that kind of stuff. That's a relationship. A connection is, to me, is a whole other level. Can kind of extrapolate on what you're covering in some of the book on that, because I think that's an important thing that guys need to realize, and why they need to go read the book is that's what, one of your goals, I would assume.
Well, like you and I were talking, right? It's got to be, you got to approach dating like it's an interview, because
Mm-hmm.
you really are. You're interviewing a potential partner. So you really can't go, and if you're so distracted by how hot she is, and oh, I can't wait, or what do I have to say? Because there's no, I remember reading once that it says that a woman would decide in the first 30 seconds of meeting you whether or not she's going to sleep with you.
Yep.
And you're going to spend the next few hours or the next few days trying to convince her to sleep with you, and she's already made that decision. And in the meantime, you're not getting to know her.
Yeah, you're when it's in that type of relationship, um, you're going off the physical more than anything else at
Absolutely.
that point. And this is something that I think a lot of guys don't get past. And you kind of touch on that in the book also, is
Yeah.
they stay in that level of just the physical. And look, I'm not going to lie. There's something positive about that, right? It's kind of cool. I'm not
Well,
going to,
absolutely.
but
You always have to have that physical
you
attraction, right?
do.
But that shouldn't be driving force.
And it doesn't, I don't think, fulfill you. At
No.
least it doesn't bring value to your life. That's something I talk about with guys all the time is what is any person, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a dating or marriage relationship, work relationships, whatever. What is that person bringing of value to your life? Because and I think that's the most important thing that guys aren't looking for or seeing or actualizing in any way. They don't look at bringing value to their life. And one of the things I think you're doing in that book is you're trying to get them to see that. And I think you do, to be honest with you.
So one of the things, Dan, and you had mentioned it before, the best way for men, especially middle-aged men, the best, look, when we were young, yes, we wanted to spew wild oats and go do whatever. So we were caught up on the whole physical thing. As we get older, you think we would want to learn. And the first thing we need to do is we have to, and you said it, we have to take sex off the table.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to have meaningful relationships, let's take sex off the table. When I met my wife 12 years ago, that was the first thing I told her. We met for coffee, and I told her, I says, listen, I'm not interested in sex in you. And she is drop dead gorgeous. I'm like, I am not interested in sex with you. So if that's what you're after, I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that I'm not attracted to you, but that's something that I know. Let's put that off in the back. Talk to me. I want to know about you. Tell me about your dad. Tell me about your relationship with your family. Tell me about your relationship with your dad. Tell me about all your past relationships. And I sit and I listen.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear, what am I listening to? If I keep hearing, oh, and this guy was this, and this guy was this, and this guy was this, and I'm like, well, so wait a minute. No responsibility on your part, right? Is
Yep.
it? None. So everything, so while I'm sitting listening, I'm thinking to myself, I'm the next person she's going to be talking about. Because we all have to, look, I've been married twice before. So this, I'm on my third and final marriage. I call this jokingly my body bag marriage. And people say, oh, well, that sounds kind of morbid. I'm like, not really. The way I look at my marriage is that I'm not leaving except in a body bag.
Uh-huh.
So, and I told my wife, I sat there and I started questioning her. I'm like, tell me, and she's like, you want to know about my exes? Yes. I want to know how the relationship ended. Because every one of my relationship that ended, I wanted to sit down. As I got older, I got smart about it. But I sat down, and in my first book, I tell people this: for every year you've been in a relationship, take 1 month off for just you. Do your own healing.
Mm-hmm.
Analyze yourself. Figure out what it is that you want to do, what went wrong. Take responsibility so that when you're ready to go into another relationship, at least you have a good self-worth of, okay, look, these are the mistakes I made in the past. What can I do to do differently? What are the flags? And there is an interesting concept that I always say We don't look for flags on the play. So, like watching football player got the ball and he's running to the end zone, right? Referees are throwing flags and he's not paying attention. All he sees is the end zone. So he gets down to the end zone, spikes the ball, and he does his dance, then find out it's a false play.
Right.
So this is how we're approaching a relationship. I even said in the book, marriage is the new dating game. So we're going into these things, we're committing into these relationships, and we're not even asking the right questions. We're not even getting to know the right. What is it about this person that really wants me to spend my life with them? And I had mentioned there, when I was 17, I have six older brothers, but one of my older brothers said to me, and this is the only advice I've gotten from any of my sibling or my dad. My older brother said to me, he goes, Kumar, I'll tell you what. He's like, you're starting to date. He's like, let me give you one piece of advice. I'm like, yeah, sure, bro. I'm young. I got it all figured out. But go ahead, tell me. He says, don't go on a date with anybody that you cannot see yourself having a long-term relationship with. And that hit me, bro.
I re-
Especially when I got it.
I remember reading that in a book, and it hit me too. Because that's a great way to think about it. Because that way you're cutting all the BS out. To be
Yeah,
blunt,
absolutely. Yeah.
you're not going to put yourself in a position where you're going to end up in a relationship that's not going to work for you.
That's why we have such high divorce rates that we do now.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's insane how high the divorce. You think about it, Dan, we're almost the same age. When you and I were in school, when we were in our early teens, maybe one in about 30 kids would have a divorced parents. Today, it's maybe 1 in 30 kids have parents who are still married.
Yeah. It's almost reversed. You're right.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
And what's interesting to me about that is, as we look at that and you look at society's ills, the whole litany of them, they dovetails right to that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get into politics on this or anything like that, but when you look at, that's when things changed, is when
Yeah.
divorce became so prevalent. And there's a lot of reasons, but I think that is one of the key ones. Is we lost the ability, and by the way, both men and women have lost the
Absolutely.
ability to get to know one another, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
You talk about this in the book. Back when you and I were dating younger, you had this small pool to draw from, right? It might
Absolutely.
be friends of friends. Hey, let me hook you up with this person. It
Absolutely.
might be someone you were in school with. Back then, most of the time you met your wife in college or sometimes high school, right? That the
Right.
majority of marriages came out of those.
Or workplace.
Or workplace is another one.
Yeah.
Now
Now,
it's
now we're doing this.
this. Yep, swiping. And you know, and you talk about this in the book, and this is one of the most powerful things I took out of it was I did Match.com a few years back, 10 years when it first came out. And, I was doing the swiping, right?
Yeah.
I had a blast, by the way, on Match. I loved it because I went into it not looking for a relationship. I went into it looking to meet people and just have conversations. And I always did the
Yeah.
coffee date thing and all that. And you talk about that in the book a little bit. But I can also see where it could be a very negative experience, right?
Too many
Because
choices.
two,
There are
you can't even
research.
begin to cover how many.
There's research out there, Dan, that talks about the fact that we are struggling because there are too many choices.
Yep.
So we don't know what to choose. That's why it's easy to bail out of a relationship because there are too many choices. Tomorrow morning I can get online and boom, 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 I can hook up with somebody else. It's a hookup culture.
That's a term I use all the time now. We've become a hookup culture, in and out.
That's what, yeah.
And unfortunately, it's let's meet, like you said earlier, meet, have dinner, have sex, married, 3 dates in. I mean,
3 dates in.
and
Yeah.
we're not getting to know one another. Whereas back in the day, for us, if you're meeting a girl in college, you might take a class together. You at least kind of getting to know one another a little bit. All right, let me ask her out. I'm trying to relating it to what I did. Oh, she's, great, or maybe not. And that's fine. You part ways. If it doesn't, you continue on, whatever. Now, like you said, it's that swipe culture. I'm going to go, she looks great. Let me go meet her. Or he looks, whatever.
And we'll line up like three in one evening. That's the kind of culture we now live in.
I actually talked with a guy. He had 6 dates in, I think it was 9 days. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Oh, I just want to see what's out there. how can you process any of that, right? Take a
You
step
can't.
back. You can't. You
You
can't.
can't. You
And
can't.
I think that's an important thing that you're covering in the book. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about that? And because I think this is important for guys that are watching, is to understand that you're not going to find, I don't think, true love that way. You might get lucky. Somebody wins the
Yeah,
lottery, right? But in
absolutely.
general, I don't think that that's going to work for. And by the way, I would say make the same argument to women, but for guys in particular, I don't think it works. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I talked about too is the fact that, look, I'm a living example. My wife and I met online. We met on this website called Spiritual Singles, and when we exchanged a bunch of emails, and this was back in the day, 12 years ago, when you actually wrote a description of who you are, so that the person gets to see who you are as opposed to just a face. And when we finally met, we went on 3 dates. And on the third date, and I told her, I says, I'm bringing a friend of mine, which is my wife's a doctor. So I bought a friend of mine who was also a doctor, who was like a mother hen to me. She was very careful of the women around me. So her and my rule was always, if you go on more than 2 dates with them, I'm coming and I'm bringing my boyfriend with me. And I write about this in the book. Why is that important? You want somebody of the opposite sex who have no interest in you. That's the key. No interest in you. They're just a friend. That's all it is. You know that there will never be anything more than just a friend. Why are you bringing this person of the opposite sex? Well, I don't want my guy friend with me because if she brings a girlfriend or whatever and he's too distracted by her, and he's going to tell me what I want to hear. I want a woman friend with me who can sit down and ask this person some questions and analyze things. And when we're done with the date and me and my friend get together, she can give me honest feedback and says, this is, did you notice this? Have you considered this? Have you asked about this? So I got a very female version unbiased. And maybe it is biased towards me because she was very protective of me. But what's funny is that when we went on a third date with my friend and her boyfriend and my now wife, we spent 3 hours killing ourselves laughing. It was such a great relationship of just sitting and talking and having conversations and getting to know what somebody behaves like in a social scene. But the reality of it is that, and we see it all the time, we hear people say that they fall in love. You should never fall in love. And I know your viewers are going to jump down my throat, but what are you talking about? Walk in love instead.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fall because the same way you fell in love, you're going to fall out of love. You didn't make a conscious choice.
Right. Yeah, I love that analogy that you're walking into love. You're taking your time. You're learning the other person, your compatibility with them, and we'll get into more about
Absolutely.
compatibility because I do want to cover that a little bit. But it's we've become. I think a lot of it, and I want to get your opinion on this. I think a lot of it now, from the guy's perspective, is I think guys are afraid of ending up alone. And the guys that I talk to, and the guys that respond to my videos on, say, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, I see it. I see a lot of it.
Yeah.
They may not verbalize it, but they're afraid of being alone. And one of the things that I do when I coach guys is teach them that, you know what? It's pretty cool to be alone. And if you get
Absolutely.
comfortable in being alone, that's going to allow you to be the best you can be, so that when you do find that person to bring into your life and share it with, that baggage is gone. And you kind of touch on it a little bit differently than I do in the book,
Yeah.
but do you find that's
Because
the
I,
same
I
thing?
did that. Yeah. I did that for when my first marriage ended. I took 7 years off.
Mm-hmm.
I did 7 years of just me. Went to the gym, traveled by myself, did whatever it is I wanted to do. And what it was great for me because what it did is it made me realize I am really comfortable being alone. I like my company.
Mm-hmm.
And if I like my company, I'm not prepared to settle for anybody who doesn't enjoy my company as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I tell people all the time, before you go and find a partner and Dan, you brought it up. A lot of us are just we're desperate, right? We're like, oh, well, I'm getting into my 40s or my 50s. I gotta find somebody. I gotta find somebody. It's just like, whoa, slow down. If you need to find somebody, you're already in trouble.
Yes.
You should have somebody who complements you, who makes your life better as you're going to make their life better.
Mm-hmm.
not somebody who needs to fill a void. And this is one of the reasons we go after the sex thing too. It's a void that we're trying to fill in our lives. So we have to be okay being comfortable. When my second marriage failed, the marriage only lasted, we lived together for about a year and a half. The marriage lasted a whole 3 months before she needed to go find herself. And I made sure and analyze myself and go, how did I contribute to this marriage falling down? I took 10 months to just, again, be with me. I became a yoga teacher. I competed in fitness. I did all these things that I didn't do while I was in that relationship before deciding, okay, I'll give it another shot, but I'm not. When I met my wife, I told her point blank, if you're looking for children, I ain't it. If you're looking to get married, I'm not it. I know two divorce lawyers. I don't need a third. And that was blunt with her. I says, listen, you want to go get, if you've never been married, go get married. I wish you the best.
Uh-huh.
But I don't want to get married with anybody. I know what I'm getting into. Go do you. And she's like, no, I don't want to have kids and I don't really want to get married. I'm like, perfect. When you want to have another date?
Have you kind of talked with her? Because this is an interesting point, because you're setting your boundaries, which,
Yeah.
again, I did a video about a week or so ago where I talked about when men set their boundaries, what happens, and oh boy, have I been savaged on that, and it's
Of
hilarious because,
course. Nobody wants to hear the truth.
God forbid a man have any boundaries, right? And it
Right.
just amuses me to no end. But I want to kind of ask you, what was her reaction? Obviously, you ended up getting married, so it wasn't a
Yeah.
negative one, but was she surprised? Because when I've taken similar approaches to what you're talking about, they're shocked. And
Oh, yeah.
the response I've always gotten is they find it almost refreshing. Well, how was your wife's response then, and what would she say about it now? I'm just curious.
So here's the thing. My wife, like I told you, right out of the gate, I told her, I'm not interested in sex. Let's put that off the table. I've been with a lot of people. I've gotten it out of my system. Doesn't mean I don't want it in the future, but I want it in the context of a relationship. I just don't want to do a one night stand, wham bam, thank you, ma'am, 2 months relationship. So I'm not interested in that. Secondly, because of my two divorces, I don't want to be in a marriage anymore, and I don't want children. So if this is who you are, I am telling you right now up front, that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So this may be a potential problem. And she actually said to me, she goes, no man has ever sat down and laid out those three things as clean. You weren't an asshole about it. You didn't, like, you weren't annoying. You just, this is who you are. I can either accept you as you are or go about my merry way. And she loved it. Even today, 12 years later, she still tells her girlfriends about it. She goes, it was so freaking refreshing to
Mm-hmm.
hear a man actually state what he wants.
And that's a takeaway. Anyone listening to this, maybe the takeaway that I hope guys get, because you talk about it in the book a lot, but it's okay to have those boundaries, and it's
Absolutely.
okay to talk about them. In fact,
Yes.
I would argue it's required to talk
It's
about them.
required.
That doesn't mean, you're the asshole about it, or,
No,
strength comes from sharing those boundaries and your expectations. It doesn't come from beating somebody over the head with it, is what I
no.
always argue. And you talk about that a little bit in the book also. And like you said, I think it sets women at ease, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
Because they're so used to the game players. And let's be honest, I was a game player back in the day. I'm not going to
Listen,
lie about
we're all guilty of it. All
it.
guilty of it. I
I
used to tell women what they wanted to hear.
oh yeah, people don't realize how easy it is to get women in bed. They really
Yeah,
don't. If
absolutely.
I wanted, I could make $1 million tomorrow teaching it. I could.
Yeah.
I will never do it because it's not the right thing. And, now, if I was 20 years old and going through what I did at 20 years old, I probably would write that book and go, I'll make $1 million.
Yeah.
And I'd be wrong to do it, to be honest with you, right? Because
Yeah.
it doesn't bring value. I always talk about bringing value to
There isn't.
relationships.
There
And
isn't.
I love that you're sharing your personal stories with this, because it's important for us as guys to see, you know, the benefits of being self-aware,
Open and honest.
honest,
Absolutely.
open.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are fearful that they're going to get rejected in doing something like that. And my answer, and I want to get yours, my answer is good. If you got rejected for doing that, she ain't the
That's
one.
a good thing. Absolutely. And again, with all these options available to us, why would you just hold on to one thing? But the reality of it is that as much as we, so everybody talks about open and honest conversation, right? It's a concept. A lot of people don't know, well, what does it take to have open and honest conversation? Well, to do that, you have to be able to speak your truth without fear of the person rejecting you, running away, whatever. And like you said, Dan, they want to run, please go. Next. Whoever is next, I'm going to be open and honest. But we also have to be able to allow ourselves, if the person can't be open and honest because they've never been given the opportunity, encourage them. Hey, tell me about your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you want from a relationship? Is a relationship what you're looking for? Like, please tell me. Let's see where we lined up. Let's make sure that if we are looking for the same thing, maybe we'll go on another day.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to speak and just go, this is who I am, take it or leave it, without being a jerk, without being a dick about it. This is who I am. Not saying that I'm not open to change, but I have to want that change for me. I'm not going to do it for you.
That's a great way to put it, right? I think, and you touch on this in the book, is so many people think that I'm going to get into relationship, marriage, whatever you want to use. I'm going to change him or her.
Yeah, we all do it.
That relationship is doomed the minute you get that,
Absolutely.
I feel. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's an important concept that people need to understand.
So, as a relationship book, and that's one of the reasons, as a relationship coach, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, Lemonade, I dwell into that a lot, where we have to understand that when we go into relationships, if there is not open honesty, the relationship is doomed from word go.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into the relationship trying to think, well, I like her, but there's a few things that I'm going to change about her. But once we get deep into the relationship and her heart's open, then I'm going to make that change. First of all, there's going to be resentment. Whether you realize it or not, there is going to be resentment. Because if that person wanted to change, if there's something about them that you want them to change, do they want to change that? And are they changing it for you or are they changing it for themselves? Because if it's something that bothers you, then bring it out and speak to the person and go, listen, you do X and that really bothers me. So can we figure out, like, what can we get to a middle ground? Because if I ask you to change whatever it is that you do, you're going to do it just to make me happy. And every time you're going to build on that resentment more and more until you wake up one day and go, I don't really like this person. People don't change.
No, they don't. And in some aspects, nor should they, right? They should be
Why
who
should
they want to be. Now, if
Absolutely.
you have a conversation about, I'm trying to think of let's say having kids.
Yeah,
If one person, I don't want kids, another one, I do want kids, that relationship, forget it. It's over.
yeah,
You can
absolutely.
now. Does that mean you can't have a conversation and maybe say,
About children?
maybe I let's say I'm 25, maybe at 35 I might think a little different. Even then, I'm not sure it's a good idea to move forward. But okay, you're having a conversation, and then you discuss it. What happens though is I see guys, especially with this. I want kids. She doesn't because she's career focused or career oriented
Right.
or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with her being that way, by the way. But I want kids, and I'm like, well, what are you going to do 10 years from now when she still doesn't want them? Well,
Absolutely.
I'll talk her into it, and I'm like, oh
Mm-mm.
no, 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 no,
Mm-mm.
no,
No, no, no,
because
no.
even
Might
if
as well
you,
call a divorce lawyer.
yeah, and even if you do talk her into it, and you just talked about it, she's going to resent you so much, and honestly, I feel you're going to resent yourself for doing that to her.
Yeah.
And
So,
go ahead.
so here's and again, personal stuff. For me, by the time I got to 40, no kids. I had taken care of a couple of nephews and nieces, put a couple of them through college. I knew by the time I was 40 that, okay, I'm 40 years old now. Yeah, kids aren't is not in my future. I love my nieces and nephews. I figured if I wanted that paternal feeling, and again, don't get me wrong, I love children. I just didn't need to see a little mini me. So for my 40th birthday, my birthday present to myself was a vasectomy. So
Okay.
I went to the doctor and I had a vasectomy. That was my 40th birthday present to myself. And every woman that I dated, that I got serious with, I would let them know, like, first or second date. Listen, if they didn't have children, if they had children, I would ask them on the date, like, Do you see yourself having more children? And if they said yes, I would let them know right away. If things go down the road, I'm letting you know now, I'm not reversing that for anybody.
Hmm.
And if you never had children, like my wife, I'm like, maybe you need to go have some children, but it ain't going to be with me because
Hmm.
I don't want any children of my own.
You know, it's those kind of conversations are what need to be had, right? And again, the way you're talking about it from personal experience, you weren't bludgeoning her with it. Here's
No,
how I am. Here's the reality. I've had a vasectomy. I
yeah,
do not want children. You're a terrific person, but if you want children, I'm not the guy for you.
yeah,
And it's to me that's a refreshing mindset to have. It's one that I have also, by the way, in various ways. There are certain things that I will not compromise on, right?
absolutely.
Uh,
Nor should you.
no, and nor exactly right. And but unfortunately, I would say, and I want to get your feedback on this, the majority of guys don't think that way. They think the exact
Yeah.
opposite. And that's
So
go ahead.
you had said before, sorry to interrupt you, you
Oh,
said
go ahead.
before, it's about the maturity, right? Yes, we may be aging in numbers, but that doesn't mean that emotionally we're aging.
Hmm.
So we don't have the emotional maturity to sit down and, and then, and I wrote about it in the book too. We operate from desperation. And I
Yes.
don't think Dan has figured it out yet. Like, why are you so desperate? If you're a decent human being, you're making a good living for yourself. You know for a fact you're not an asshole. You treat people kind. You try to do but what's best for you. Sky's the limit, man. They got all kinds of women who are looking for guys just like you, who are not necessarily in the 666 level.
Right.
6 foot tall, six-figure income, you know. There are a lot of women out there who are looking for nice guys. So be a nice guy without being too nice. Be okay with putting it out there. And if that's not acceptable to them, then go find somebody who works for you.
It's having that confidence in yourself. It's
Yeah.
one of the things that I talk about with guys all the time, and I try and educate them. Is, there are a lot of women out there promoting the sixes. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? If that's what they want, I have no problem with
Good
it.
on them.
Good for them. If you can find that guy, and I actually did a video a few months back where I did the numbers for the United States. Now, population of 330 million, there's about 10,000 guys that meet those criteria. It's
Mm-hmm.
150 million women. If you think you're going to get out of 150, you're going to get one of them 10,000, good on you. Good luck.
Absolutely.
I wish
Yep,
you the
yep.
best.
Yeah.
But guys do the same thing in reverse in a lot of respects. Instead of saying, you know what, I need to do what's best for me. That type of woman is not for me. Nothing wrong
No.
with them in any way, shape, or form. But why would I even think about pursuing someone like that? But yeah, guys will chase those people. I'll change her.
Yes.
I'll meet those criteria, and they're lessening themselves. I feel right. And
So I have one for you that you'd appreciate.
okay,
So when I was living in Arizona, I used to go to the club in Scottsdale, and I would tell women. Again, I did it as a joke to get a laugh out of people because I always like to make people laugh. Right? People are always at ease if they're laughing. My wife always tells me that's what got her in trouble to begin with because I had her laughing from work, though, which is a whole different story. But my answers would always be: I tell these women, I'm going to tell you three answers, and if you can match these questions, we are off to the races. The three answers are: I ride a bicycle, I live with my mom, and I'm in between jobs. What are the questions?
say that again.
And
Now
you would see them like some of them would be:
you
I
live,
ride a bicycle,
you ride a bicycle instead of
I
a car. Okay,
I live with my mom,
okay.
I live with my mom, and I'm in between jobs.
So the three big no's, so to speak, for women. I can imagine the responses.
Especially in the Scottsdale crowd.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine the responses you got.
Scottsdale crowd. I got it every day. What do you do? Where do you live? What do you drive?
Yep.
That's how women let off when I was there.
It's interesting that you say that because
It was amazing.
yeah, you talk about it a little bit in the book too, and I was kind of relating to that. I love that you did that experiment because it kind of puts on the table what women are looking for, right?
Absolutely.
Let's kind of shift that conversation because I think this is an important concept that we're kind of getting into. Is a lot of men don't understand the differences between what women are looking for and what men are looking for. And by the way, vice versa. In fact, I think it's women have
Absolutely.
no clue what men want. None. I
No,
see that daily.
none.
But in a nutshell, what is it that you see, and I know you talk about it in the book, what is it that you see are the priorities for women when they're looking for a relationship, a mate, however you want to term it?
Absolutely. So, good question. So, women talk about a nice guy, but let's be honest, they're not looking for a nice guy. They're looking for somebody to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Women talk about, well, it's not how much money he makes, is who he is as a person. If that's the case, you wouldn't hear so many people complaining a lot about, he's a loser, he's in between job, he makes $30,000 a year. What they should be looking for, to be honest with you, and this is just my 2 cents for it. Ask that person about right out of the gate in dating, what is his relationship with his mom? That will tell you a ton of things about him. What is his relationship with his sister? What is his relationship, if he has an ex, with his ex? And then, who are you as a person? Like, tell me beyond how much money you make. What are the things you do for fun? What do you like? What brings you joy? What is it that about you that makes you different? Like, what? Why would I consider going on a second date with you compared to some other guy? I got listen. You and I both know it. A woman can walk out the door and she gets stick thrown at them.
Yep.
It's not the same for men. We have to put in the work to attract a partner. But if women were honest with themselves and go, what am I really looking for? Am I looking for the person I can post pictures of couples goals, relationship goals, and get all these likes on Instagram or Facebook or whatever? This person is talking. Like I was telling my wife the other day, I said, you realize we hardly leave our home. She's finishing her book right now. She bounces off ideas off of me. We will talk. We sit in meditation both in the morning and in the evening, which is something we're going to talk about because we spend between 3 to 5 hours a day in meditation together, doing our own, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the things that we have in common with each other. We realize pretty quick in our first and second date that we were literally male and female versions of each other.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that she liked, I liked. All the things that she liked, I like. I'm like, wow, finally somebody that I can go do stuff with and not have to sacrifice. If I want to go golfing, she wants to go golfing. She's never tried golfing, but she's like, I'm game. She wants to go shopping. Okay, I'll go shopping. But if you take me shopping, understand this. So I'm going to give you my honest opinion. So if you ask me if I look fat in that dress, I'm going to tell you the truth. So don't ask me my opinion if you don't want to hear the truth.
What?
So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
It does, because I think it's important to understand all that, right? Is to see one of the things I talk about often is men and women think completely differently. Men, and you talk about it in the book also.
Completely.
We are, for lack of a better term, we think
Yeah.
logically, women think emotionally, and that's not a pro or con for either one. And my argument has always been that's why we're better off together, because I feel men's weaknesses are women's strengths and women's weaknesses are men's strengths. And when we come together and work together, everyone benefits, not just us, society as a whole. And I've made that argument forever. But I think
So
go ahead.
let's talk about that. And this is part of the dating interview process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we go out and we're dating somebody, we shouldn't be looking at, she's nice. Oh, that'll be a nice lady. Oh, what's it going to take? Because that's what occupies the man's mind. What do I need to say to her? If I throw enough shit against the wall, something's going to stick and I'm going to get laid tonight. Instead, we should be looking at this person completely different and go, am I a pretty happy person? And that answer should be yes. And if it is, how can this person enhance my happiness?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to evaluate that person. Does she seem to be a happy person? And how can I contribute to make her happy?
Instead of what most people do, which is I will try and get my happiness through that person. Or she'll get her happiness through me. That's never going to work. And I think
never going to work.
I think that's where I don't know a number to throw at it, I'm going to throw 95% of people are at right now is they're seeking happiness from
Yeah.
others instead of from themselves. And I kind of want to go in this direction a little bit, specifically for guys, is when you're working with guys, and I know you touch on some of this stuff in the book, and really it's the premise of the whole book is to try and get yourself in a happy place, because then you're going to be the best you. But where do you see guys struggling the most with that? And what are your feelings or approaches on how best to fix that?
So where I see a lot of men approaching is, so where we struggle is we've never really wanted to look at us.
Mm-hmm.
We've never taken a deep dive in who we are as people. And am I being the best version of me for me before I go present that to somebody else? And what I'm presenting to somebody else, is that truly me? Or is that a version of what I think the person wants to see or hear? So if I'm happy with me, then what have I got to lose? Either this person is going to accept me or not. And if they don't want to accept me, it's okay. Let's not waste each other's time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to present myself in something that I'm not, that I'm going to have to try and keep up. Sooner or later, I can't keep that up. That's one of the reasons my second marriage failed. Where we have to be is, before we go out into, and I know we're spending a lot of time in the dating world, but it is such a big thing today because we are not really, who taught us how to date? Who taught us the questions? I don't know if you had a chance, and I tried to keep it light and fun. Well, ask questions like, hey, how many past lovers have you had? Tell me what was good. Tell me what was bad. Because here's the reality. We need to understand those things so we know where we fit in. If she says things about an ex that is kind of who I am, shit, I'm in trouble now. So we need to be able to have those conversations. And let's be real. When we met our partners, they had a life before meeting us. And women get turned up about this too. They're like, oh, well, you were this one and you were this one. It's just like, yeah, I had a life before meeting you. It's not as though you fell out the sky and here we are. So we have to be open that, look, this person has a past. So
Right.
be willing to hear about that. I can't bullshit my way. It's not like a job. And even in trouble, personal trainer, you can't go in and tell people, oh, I could train, and when you don't know how to train, sooner or later that truth is going to come out.
It does. And,
So
it's,
we got to be open and honest.
yeah, you bring up an interesting point that I always try and have discussions about with people is leave the past in the past. Yes, it's good to know about someone's past, but if you were to go by my past and how I was in 1983 versus 1993 versus 2023, I'm a totally different person.
Absolutely.
Not even remotely close to where I was 20, 30, 40 years ago. So, I see a lot of guys get so hung up lately, especially the body count number. Who cares? I'm sorry. If you're going to judge someone by what they did, like I said, I'm 60 years old. If I were out dating and I met a 60-year-old woman, am I going to worry about what she was doing in 1982? It was a whole different lifestyle back then.
Exactly.
You can't live by that.
All,
Find that
all
person.
I need to know is, tell me about your last closest relationships. Tell me how they were.
Yep.
Tell me what was good about them. Tell me what was bad about them. What worked, what didn't work. That's all I want. That's all. I don't want to know what you did 10 years ago.
And that's really all you need, really, to be able to understand that. All right, let's shift the conversation, if we can, a little bit, because one of the things that you talk about in the book, in general, is men's health. But specifically, I want to touch on something that's near and dear to my heart, which is testosterone. Because I think, one of the things you mentioned in the book, and I talk about all the time, especially with guys that I'm training, is the plummeting in the levels of testosterone in men now versus roughly 50 odd years ago. The cutoff date I always used was roughly 1970, is when it really started to change. And there's a lot of reasons that I postulate for that. A lot of it is our diet changed then. A lot of it is we became much more sedentary. I mean, much
Yep.
more. Obesity levels skyrocketed. Now the trainer in me's coming out, right? The nutritionist and the trainer's coming out in me. But even setting those aside, I think in general, society is having an effect on it. And I'm not trying to blame feminism, but that's part of it, right? Feminism arose. And I do think that that plays a part in it also. You touch on a lot of different things in the book. Kind of, let's start with at the high level. Talk a little bit about what you share in the book about your thoughts on testosterone and what you're seeing.
So it's amazing then that how many men are not educated on a powerful hormone like testosterone. This is what makes us men.
Mm-hmm.
And I started off one chapter showing the statistics that a 20-year-old today has the same testosterone level as a 60-year-old 20 years ago.
That's
just 20 years ago.
That's scary.
Isn't it?
It
Because
is.
think about it. When you get to 30, you lose 30% of your testosterone that you had in your 20s. When you get to 40, you lose 30% of your testosterone that you had in your 30s. When you get to 50, you lose 30% of the testosterone. And it goes all the way. So by the time you get to 60, your testosterone level used to be here, now it's here. And to be able to say somebody who's 20 years old is starting here, where do they go from there? That's scary.
It's something that I talk about a lot in the fitness side of things that I do. It is scary because it drives us. It drives our health. It drives our ability to
Absolutely.
function. I have low T. I do everything right, and I still have low T. Right, so a lot of that is I'm 60 years old now. I can relate totally to what you're talking about. I know what I could do at 25. I knew what I could do at 30. I can't do those same things, not to that level, right? Testosterone has a lot to do with it. And the problem is society in general has a bias against testosterone, right? You're old enough to know that in a manner of speaking, feminism made testosterone a bad thing, right? Well, they're all rage filled and all
Or
that
they all
stuff.
testosterone. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And they always ignore the
Absolutely.
fact that women have testosterone too, by the way. Hello.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting, like some of the stuff you talk in the book, going off of that is saying the levels have plummeted. I am as scary as it is now, what it's going to be in 2050, 2060, when these 20-year-olds are our age, I can't
Yep.
even fathom it. So, I mean, what are your thoughts?
And
Where do
we
you think?
wonder,
Go ahead.
and then we wonder about the rise of the quote unquote beta male.
Yep.
We are now dealing with men who don't even know how to be men anymore. They're raised by, and again, nothing against women. Chances are they're in a divorce situation with their parents. So they aren't raised by both the masculine and feminine in that. Dad maybe get the child on the weekends or whatever. Mom's got this. So they're being raised with a single mom most of the time. Dad's not there to discipline the child all the time or to show him, more importantly, to show that child what it be like to be in a masculine in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
how to interact. So children are learning, and if they don't have both a mother and father who are living in their role, this is one of the things that I often talk about. We can dance around the fact that there people have traditional roles. It's amazing how these quote unquote traditional roles kind of gets moved, the goalpost gets moved. I want traditional roles when it suits me, but I don't want traditional roles when it traditional role of having higher testosterone and be able to feel better, feel more emotionally stable, to go out and do hard work and sweat it out and come home exhausted and feel like, okay, I've accomplished something. I feel like a man. That is not there anymore. You have these men today who make the decision. And this is one of the things that the current project is something called, I'm still trying to figure out the right wording for it, but then it's creating an authentic male. What is it like? And I talked about it in the book. What is it like to be authentic? We don't know that because our testosterone are all over the place.
Right.
Our estrogen levels are high, our testosterone. We don't know what it's like to be an authentic male. What does that mean like? And I'm not talking about some big gruff guy who shoves his woman aside. Oh, you gotta listen. That's not that. No, no, no. That's not an authentic male. An authentic male is I give you my word, and I will do whatever it takes. If I tell you, Dan, I'm going to show up at 11:30 to do that interview with you, I made a commitment to you. I
Mhm.
knew the day I made that commitment to you that this is something that no matter unless it's an emergency, I am not going to miss that. So this is one of the challenge I'm having with the men around me, and I equate it to lower levels of testosterone. Because as men, that was one of our word is our bond. That is our bond. When
Mhm.
we give our word for something, if I tell my wife I will love you forever, that is my bond. I will love you forever. That's not just something I'm throwing out there because it's what you need to hear right now. I attest that too to the low testosterone level. So we're seeing it. All these men that you see who are just like they're wishy-washy. I hear it from women all the time. You can't trust them. Well, guess what? They don't trust themselves.
Right.
They tell you something that they know by the time it comes out of their mouth, they're not going to fulfill it.
You know,
Which is a go ahead.
it's interesting the point you're making there because it's something that I've made also. Again, brother from another mother here, the bald brotherhood, if we will. It's something I've talked about too. They do go hand in hand, right? Is
Yeah,
that the testosterone levels? That's the physical side of it. That's 50% of it.
yeah,
Societal, I tend to call it as societal, but you're talking about it. Mothers raising sons, and
absolutely.
there are some great single mothers. I'm not knocking them in any way, but they cannot do
But
what a
you're not a
father does.
dad.
Exactly, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
By
You're
the way,
not a dad.
right?
Absolutely.
I've had guys say to me, "Well, if it reversed and dad's always got custody, it would be no better as far as long-term implications on society because we can't be moms, right? And
Absolutely.
we are unique and different, and that's a good thing, and it's to be celebrated, and it needs to be recognized that when we raise children, they benefit more from having both. I make that argument all the time. But it's interesting to hear you say and talk about the testosterone side of it because it does intertwine. It does come into play. And with the levels plummeting the way they are and getting worse by the year, uh, you know, for whatever reasons, it prevents men from understanding what it is to be a man. And you kind of said that,
Yeah,
right? It and what it's doing, I think, I don't want to spend all our time on relationships, but it's repulsing women. I
absolutely.
have women say to me all the time, they hate, I call them pander bears. They pander to women and what they think women want.
Tons of them.
They
Tons of
are
them. Tons of them.
repulsed. Women are repulsed by that. I can't tell you how many women have said that to me. They, they may think some of them will think it's cool right off the bat, right? But after a while, it's like, dude, no, do you have any balls at all? I had one woman say to me, men have no balls anymore. And she's right. They don't.
Yeah. But she's right. She's
She's right.
100% right.
And the question I have then is how do we go about fixing that? Both from the physical,
Uh,
the societal, and may I add also spiritual, I think comes into play here also. You talk about that a little bit in the book too.
yeah. So here is what I'm doing. My philosophy, and I'm going to quote Gandhi here, be the change in the world you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
We can't go fix anything, brother. All we can do is fix us. So this is what I was alluding to earlier. My goal is my New Year's resolution to myself was this. I treat people how they treat me. End of story. If I text you and it takes you 4 days to just even send me an emoji that you respond, that you got my message, but hey, I'm too busy. You don't even have to say that. Send me a thumbs up. It takes literally seconds to
Mm-hmm.
confirm that, hey, I got you. I am going to do exactly what people do to me. If you don't support me, I got no support to you. If you take 3 or 4 days, I was having this conversation with a nephew of mine the other day. I sent him a message, last year sometime before I stopped talking to him. I took him 3 weeks to get back to me, and I go, bro, I messaged you. Oh, uncle, I'm busy. I says, let me ask you something. I'm busy too. We all are busy, so don't hide behind this busyness. I bet you if it was something that you needed to do or it was one of your friends or something, you'd respond right away. So you're telling me you want me to believe that you never got on your phone at all in the last 3 weeks. You never got on. Oh yeah. Do you take your phone to the toilet? Yeah. Like everybody. Okay. So why when you were there, you couldn't go, Uncle, I'm busy. Let me get back to you in a couple of days. So this is where we are now. I am treating people exactly the way that they treat me.
Mm-hmm.
So then to answer your question, how am I going to fix it? I'm going to fix it by being a better person for me. And I am raising the bar about who I allow around me. So if you're going to be around me in my inner circle, I'm going to hold you accountable. But I'm going to ask you for permission to hold you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I got a good friend of mine, I also do, my wife and I do plant medicine ceremonies. That's one of the things we moved to Panama. Um, we open up a retreat center and we constantly have clients. And I have a good friend of mine who picked up my first book. He'd never met me before, but he flew to Panama just to meet me and we became friends. And he's been wanting to do a Zoom ceremony on breath work and how he's also a fit guy, 55, retired. So I told him about, look, you got to commit to you, bro. Don't commit because I ask you. Wake up every morning, stretch out your fascia. Do so. Oh, we don't breathe enough. If I gave you some statistics on breathing, it would blow your mind. We don't breathe enough. We're not oxygenating enough. We're not moving our bodies enough. So if you can commit to you 15 minutes every day, just for you, first thing in the morning, use the bathroom, brush your teeth, wash your face, and sit quietly, put on some music and do some breath work, some stretch, and flowing before you start the day, before you go. See where you have tightness. Because guess what? When you see where the tightness is, when you go to the gym, you're going to be careful because you're like, hey, I can't lift because I realize that my arm is, or my shoulder, or my hip. I got to be careful with that, right? So at least you're getting to know your body. Mm-hmm. And I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and he says he has a board of directors. I go, tell me more about that. And he told me, he said, you are on the board. He's like, as a matter of fact, you're like the head director. And I'm like, what? I didn't know that. And he says, tell me about this board. He says, it's three men who I have in my life. And this guy's 55. He's like, it's three men that I admire their life. I admire who they are as people. I admire who they are as men. I admire their authenticity. So I know that when they call me out, it's the calling me out for my good. Mm-hmm. It's not calling me out because it benefits them. It's calling me out to make me a better person. And I look at them and go, yeah, they're living their truth. I need to find and live my truth, but I need to give them permission to call me out when I'm not living my truth. Not the things that I tell myself, right, but the things that somebody who's unbiased, who wants something, who wants the best version of me, can tell me that, hey, listen, maybe you need to do this differently. Maybe you don't need to because he's single right now and he really wants to pack up everything and travel the world. He's got a couple of divorces under, he's raised his kids, he's retired now, and he just wants to go see the world. And every time he's been kicking this can for about a year now, every time he's ready to pack up and go, some woman comes into his life and he gets distracted for a few months. So I told him the other day, I said, Keith, I'm going to call you out, bro. I says, you're not putting you first. You're getting distracted by the next potential love partner. You know going in that you're not in a healed place. And I'm not saying that any of us is healed because healing is a continuous thing. Mm-hmm. But you're not in a place to offer a partner the best version of you. Are you? And he's like, no. I said, so why don't you just take some time and just do you before you run to the next woman or look for the next hookup? Why don't you just do you? You want to go to Asia? Lock up everything. This new woman that you have, why don't you tell her, listen, I've been promising myself to do this for a while. I got to go do this for me. I'm not going to be a good partner unless I go do this for me. And when I come back, when do I come back? I don't know. But I'm not asking you to wait for me. I just got to go do me. And when I come back, if you're still available, if I still feel the same way about you, we'll pick it up and go. But if we don't, have a great life. And you could see the look on his face that he looked like that prospect was so fucking scary. Like, wait, you want me to tell her what?
Yep.
And then he's like, you're right. I have to.
Yeah, it's something I often talk about with guys is exactly what you're talking about, and I serve that role with a lot of people I work with as a coach, right? Both as a trainer and, the men I coach is to be that person that's going to tell them my favorite phrase. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Not
Because
what you
if
absolutely, brother.
if I'm trying to help you and you want to be the best you can be, you need to hear the good and the bad, not just the good. And I think, to
Absolutely.
kind of talk about what we were talking about earlier with the way society has changed, I think that's another thing that's been lost, especially with the removal of fathers from the family, is that
Yep.
that's one of the things that dads tend to do better than mothers. Again, I'm generalizing, all right? There's exceptions on both
Yeah,
sides.
yeah.
But in
Absolutely.
general,
Absolutely.
fathers tend to be a little bit more blunt, a little more, I don't know if honest is the right word, but I'm going to use it. And, you know,
Right.
and teach kids, look, the whole world is not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Other people are going to do mistakes at you. You can only just learn from those mistakes and keep moving forward. Don't, as I talked about earlier, don't live in the past and all that stuff. And having that person, and again, that's been lost in prior generations. That's, even at our age, right? If our dads were still around, we could go to them and say, geez,
Yeah.
such and such is happening at work. What do you think? And you're going to get a different answer from a guy than you are a woman. You are. And that's okay, right? I always say get both because you can pull strengths and
Absolutely.
weaknesses from both. But that's been lost. And I think we're seeing that in society. You talked about the beta males and all that. They've lost that ability to have, for lack of a better term, those boundaries that we kind of touched on earlier, and have
Yeah.
that mentor, whether it's a father figure, whatever term you want to use, a
Well,
coach,
friend
a
or yeah,
friend, or whatever.
absolutely, whatever.
If
Yeah.
and I always say to guys, if you don't have someone like that, go find them. And by the way, mine is a female, but she thinks like a
Yeah.
male, right? And she is, as my best friend happens to be a female, she cuts me no slack. She doesn't bullshit at all. She will tell me to my face I'm full of shit, and I love her
Yep.
to death for it because she is the one that kind of centers me, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked about it before. There's nothing sexual between us. There will never be, and it never has been, never will be. But for me, that's that relationship that I have, and I have that person. That's how I can lean on her, right, and say, "Oh, geez, such and such happened. It sucks," and she'll like, "Shut up, dude. Suck it up. There's a lot worse things." Or she might say,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that's really bad. How are you going to address it?" She won't tell me how to address it.
Absolutely.
She'll pull it out of me. And I think that's a really good point that you're making, is that we need that mentor, coach, friend, whatever. And would you
Bro-
also agree with me that it shouldn't
Brotherhood.
always be your spouse? It should be someone separate from your spouse.
It can't be. It can't be. It cannot be. I mean, don't get me wrong. My wife and I are best friends.
Yep.
There's nobody in the whole wide world that I would rather spend time with. Putting that aside, and I can tell you, because of where I have set the bar for myself, that's me. I set the bar for myself that this is who I am to other people. If anybody comes within my circle, I am going to be the best version of me and absolutely authentic. But when I look at it and go, I can be that to other people, but who do I have in my life that I can be authentic with? That I can say, listen, this is what's going on in my life. I just need you to give me some feedback. It's like we need, and in your case, it's different, but we need a group of like brotherhood, and this is this board of directors thing. We need a handpicked group, and again, these people have to be interviewed. It's not just oh, we've been friends forever. No, 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 no. I need to know that this person, when I come with my shit, they can call me out.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, dude, think about that. Like if I had a fight with my wife, then they'll call me out and go, Kumar, you were wrong. You were 100% wrong. And you need to fix that. You need to look at this and you need to figure out how to fix whatever it is you created because you're only looking at it from, oh, what you did and what she did and what she said. And you played an important role in this and you need to take responsibility for that. How many of us, and I've asked a lot of men lately, how many of you have men, whether it's one, two, three, five, whatever the number is, a group of men that you know you can sit down and not just talk about football or oh, let's go biking this weekend or did you see that chick? Oh, and I got laid this. No, honest, open dialogue of, hey, this is what's going on. I don't sleep well, man. I've been struggling with this. I'm struggling to get a hard on these days. I'm like
Mm.
personal stuff, and you're not going to be judged and you're not going to be made fun of. and the person is not going to belittle you. And, oh man, just fucking just grow some balls. But be able to sit down and go, wow, you know what? I've been having some of those issues too, and I wasn't good about talking about it. I'm glad you're bringing it up because I can share that with you. We need that group around us, whether it's dad, uncle, older brothers, friends, whoever it is, a core group of men to hold us accountable so that we can feel safe, share without fear of.
You know, you brought up something there that I think I want to just touch on briefly myself, which is I have the same conversations with men, and they'll say, "Oh, I can't do that because he's going to think less of me or he's going to mock me."
Yeah,
What happens generally?
yeah,
It does
yeah,
that happen? Yeah, it
yeah.
does. But 9 times out of 10, the exact opposite happens. That guy is going to respond to you and go, "Holy shit, I had the same problems," or geez, I'm dealing with that too. You know,
Absolutely.
let's say ED, right? You know, you go to your friend, you think you're going to get mocked and all that. He's going to turn around and go, guess what, bro? I got the same problem. And then you have that conversation.
Absolutely.
And I think it frees men because men tend to isolate themselves emotionally, especially. And they think it's just them. Women do that to a certain
Yep.
extent, but men really, we're pros at that, I think. And I've
Yeah,
done
yeah.
that. You know, I met recently with a guy. I went and had lunch with him, right? And we we hit it off right away. But then he opened up to me first, and then I opened up to him. You know, we were just having lunch. We were just getting to know each other. We were 4 hours later because we made that connection with each
Yeah.
other. We opened ourselves up. We made ourselves vulnerable to one another. So many guys are
Yeah.
afraid of that. And yes, I understand. There are guys out there that will jump you for it. Absolutely true. I don't deny that. But the nine,
But here's the reality. If they do, then they
then
don't need to be your friend.
I was going to say, then you need to cut them out of your life. That's exactly where I was going to go with it, right?
Absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
that stop keeping those people in your life. They serve you no benefit. If someone is to do now, again, we all tease each other. You know, there's the locker room teasing and all that. That's fine. That's one thing. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about open, honest conversation. Geez, you know, um, I'll use another one. A guy that I work with, his father died recently, and it's just devastated him. And he came to me and we had an honest conversation about it. I didn't mock him in any way, shape, or form. It helped him heal because in the end, that was the
Right.
benefit to him. But that would never have happened if he was afraid of me, right? Or afraid of himself being
Absolutely.
vulnerable. And that's one of the things you talk a lot bit about in the book that I think
Hmm.
that guys need to take away from. And let me be clear. I think every guy, I don't care how good your relationship is or how bad, you need to go read this book. It is going to open your effing eyes up, okay, and make you think. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that because, you know, Kumar's sitting in front of me or any of that. This is a life-changing book for some guys. It really is. I truly honestly believe that because you you give answers, but you make people come up with their own answers in that book, if you will. Is you go,
We
here's
have to
this
empower.
yeah, here's your situation, here's things to think about, but you don't sit there and go, it's A, B, and C. You know, like you talked about earlier, some of the questions to ask when you meet someone and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you then it's on you to say, okay, what are the answers I get back? Now, how do I take those answers and what do I do with them? You know,
Process. What do I do with it? Yeah, yeah.
because it
Well, it's funny that one of the guys who left a review, and it shocked me. This one really, I wasn't expecting it because when I wrote the book, then I wrote the book. My goal was if I can help one man not go through what I had to go through, then whatever the price for the book was, it's well worth it. But a 67-year-old, he was the first one to put a review on there. And he put on there, he's like, I'm 67, I've been married for 40 years. He says, the one thing, he says, this book I'm only halfway through. It's changed my life.
mhm.
It's changed me as being a husband. It's changed me as being a man. Like, wow. One book, it's like, this blows my mind. I've read hundreds of books. One book did that change, and I'm only halfway through.
And I would argue the same happened to me. And again, I've studied this stuff for decades, right? I have worked with thousands of men over the years and coached them in different ways. Some of it's physical, some of it's been getting through life's trials and tribulations. It is a life-changing book. And what I love about it more than anything else is it makes you self-reflect. It makes you see, and then the other side of it is you talked about creating that brotherhood. This book creates a brotherhood, right? As I'm reading that, I'm like, well, shit, I went through exactly what Kumar went through. I had the exact same feelings.
And who else did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
You,
it really makes you think. And here's the other thing I'm going to throw out there, and this it may even surprise you. I don't know. I think women need to read this book as much as men do.
so I didn't. It's funny that you say that. So, and if you have a disclaimer in the front, if you're a woman trying to understand men, this is not the book for you. However, and I'm so glad you brought it up. The gentleman who's 67 years old, who wrote the review, his wife reached out and she said to me, Kumar, I know you said this book is not for women, but I would like to read this book. Go ahead. And she's like, I need to understand what a man goes through so that I know how to react. And I'm like, wow.
Yep.
Go ahead, sister. Knock yourself out, man. Buy it and read it.
And-
But you know what's interesting, Dan, was so on LinkedIn from my corporate days, because I spent 20 odd years in corporate America, I have over 400 and something contacts. These are all people who know me, they've worked with me, they've known me for years. And amazing. That's why I'm literally paying people to spend 99 cents. The books cost me money to get into people's hands. Out of the 400 something contacts between my personal contacts on my phone, my Instagram contacts, and my LinkedIn contacts, I would say it's over 500 people. I have sent, hey, 99 cents, download this, read it. Even if you, I guarantee you get something of it. It was amazing. I would say 95% of the people just didn't even respond. No response. All men, no response. One guy actually reached out to me about 3 days ago, and I'm like, hey, did you get the book, dude? It's 99 cents. Get it. And he goes, honestly, bro, no. And I go, I'm curious why. He goes, nah, I'm just not interested in that. And I'm like, wait, what? You're 40-something years old. You are looking at getting married for the first time, and I'm trying to give you a book for you to understand what's going to happen to you as you get older, how to deal in a relationship, how to be a better person, how to be a better man, all of these things, and you're not interested in zero of that. No, not interested. I'm like, wow, okay, I got nothing.
Somebody like that, you can't help them. You can lead a horse to water, right? And 10 years from now, he'll be coming back to you going, I wish I'd read the book. Because I hear stuff like this all the time. I work with guys, and I'll have guys come to me and go, well, like let's say, for example, family court issues, right? I thought all along that was never going to happen to me. I was a great dad. I was never going to get divorced. And they're the ones that will come at me the most, right?
Right.
Is you hate women, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, just wait 10 years, dude. Because there's a 50% chance you're going to be reaching out to me going, oh, I wish I'd listened to you, And that's why I want to encourage people to read this book, because you could be in the best relationship possible. You could be the happiest you could ever be in your life, and you'll still get something out of this book. And like I said, I think women need to read it for the exact reason you mentioned, is that it's not written for women. It's written for men, but it will help women to understand men. And
absolutely,
there's one thing that people always say to me, what's the biggest issue you see with women? And I will say is they have no clue what men think and feel. They just don't, nor do they want to, right? If the ones that do, the ones that are willing to make an investment in whatever term that would be, especially something like reading this book, those are the ones that end up being the great wives,
very happy,
great mothers. That's it. If I were a single mother, I would say, well, let me say that if you're a single mother, you need to read this book, because if you're raising a son, this could change his life in ways
Absolutely.
that I cannot even enumerate.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because Kumar's sitting here, okay? I would be saying this, and I am going to be saying this on some of my social medias because it's that critical. It's not it's not the fix, so to speak. It's going to make you think so that you find your own fix, whatever that might be.
Absolutely.
It's going to help you to be healthy in that. So I know I'm shilling like crazy, and I don't care because I am. All right.
But, but here's the reality. The reality of it, brother, like you say, we've lost our way. Then at the end of the day, we've forgotten how to be men. The whole feminist movement was a lie that the Rockefellers perpetrated since in the 20s. So 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago, women are buying into this. You see all these women who are now, it's the latest craze on TikTok, Instagram. Everybody's crying, we're all the good men. Oh my God, why wouldn't men approach me? I don't know. Me Too movement. Men don't, they need specific consent before they can even hold you or kiss you, or if it's a first date, move in for a hug or a kiss, because they need explicit consent. Even in marriages, we're talking about, and I know women are going to jump on me. I don't need explicit consent from my wife. I can look at my wife and know whether or not she wants me. And if you are in a partnership where your husband wants you and you want that, why do you need to give them specific, explicit consent that so they can touch you or approach you? This is the square we have now painted ourselves in.
Yep. Yep.
We're lost our minds, and then we're wondering why are these, like one of the ones you posted here, that woman cried about, oh, why wouldn't they approach me? Because this is the reality we have now created. I couldn't work in corporate America. I'd be in HR every fucking day because I walked into the office and I hug everybody.
It's funny you say that because, when I was in corporate America, I worked in IT, and I used to do the HR investigations, and I could never make it anymore.
No,
I'm glad I own my own businesses because, part of the problem is I'm honest with people. You can't even be that anymore. You have to be a fake personality. You talk about consent in marriages, and I see all the time women saying stuff like that, or making it transactional. That's the other thing I just despise. If him not doing the dishes is your reason for not having sex with him, you don't love him, because you've turned sex into a business transaction, prostitution, for lack of a better term.
that's exactly what it is. And
Yeah.
women can get tricked, but that's exactly what it
It
is.
is what it is. And as opposed to a loving transaction, I don't know if that's the best word, but if you love one another and you care for one another, it doesn't matter whether the dishes are done or he's made X number of dollars or what. I see so many women that have turned it into this. And I get that some of that is going back to what society has taught them, because they have been taught that from the day they're born. But if they could change that mindset alone and say, it benefits me as a woman to have that sexual relationship. And, I mean, that you have a whole section on the book on that. I'm not going to get into that because we'd be here for 10 hours.
But here is something regarding that.
Okay.
On that topic, I will make it short and brief. And I didn't put it in the book, but here is the reality. Dan, you and I both know this. Most women out there don't know this. You tell a man no often enough, and he's going to stop asking. And
Yep.
the minute he stops asking, because men are really funny creatures, women think that, oh, yeah, well, men all just think about the sex and beer and TV. Here's the reality. When a man turns off that tap of passion towards you, I don't fucking care who you are, he's never going to turn it back on.
Nope.
He will never trust you again
Nope.
to turn it back on.
It's gone forever, and no amount of counseling, no amount of any effort on your part is ever going to get it back.
None.
You've broken that
None.
trust.
Yep.
I could not agree with you more. And, one of the things that I always say to women is stuff like that. And the other part of it is when you're making it transactional, you're telling them you don't love them. You may not, you don't mean it that way. And I know the majority of the time they don't mean it that way. But that's what a man is receiving. The message, no matter how you put it, that's what he's receiving. It's, they think it's sex for sex purposes, and sometimes it is. And you know what? That's okay too. But it's really about it's connection. It's that closeness. That's where guys get it. And there is nothing effing wrong with that. I am so sick of hearing people say that there's something wrong with it. There is nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it. No.
And the other side of it is when you have that connection from the woman's side, she benefits every bit as much.
Absolutely.
And
Because
unfortunately,
we are wired that way. We are
yes,
wired that if we are happy, if our partner is happy, we are
yes,
going to do whatever the fuck it takes to keep them happy. We like that.
exact that. I mean, it's worked for how many millions of years? Hello.
Right.
But in the last 50, we're tearing apart a million plus years of evolution and expecting.
So,
It's just funny. You're laughing because we think so much alike. But go ahead,
yeah,
make
yeah.
your point.
My wife's favorite saying is that woman was sold the biggest lie. Happy wife, happy life. She goes, that's the biggest pile of shit that women have ever bought into themselves. Because a woman, if she's honest with herself, is not always happy because she's emotional. So what makes her happy this morning is not going to make her happy this afternoon. Again, emotional. Her secret is happy husband, happy life. And here's why she says it. She goes, if I keep my husband happy, guess what he does? He wants to magnify that because he wants to stay happy. So he's going to do whatever the fuck it takes to make
Yes.
me happy so I can keep him happy.
Your wife is a genius, if I may say so, because you're right. That how happy wife, happy life thing. Women resent you when you get into that mindset. They don't like
Yeah.
that. But when it's natural and ingrained, when she gives to you as a man, you are as a man going to reciprocate. Women don't realize that
Absolutely.
anymore.
Tenfold,
You
brother,
know,
tenfold.
and it's something you say in the book that I think is kind of important to bring up is women use sex to get in relationships. Men use relationships to get into sex.
Yeah.
My opinion, that's my biggest takeaway from the book so far. And I already knew that. But can you kind of talk about that a little bit? We've got a few minutes,
Yeah.
but I don't want to let that one go because that to me, that was my biggest takeaway.
So this is something as a relationship coach that I saw all the time. Women fake sex because they want relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not driven by I want this person. And this is one of the reasons you see divorce rates. I've studied divorce rates and see all the reasons that they fall down. And I list out a bunch of ones in the divorce section. But one of the ones that I see all the time is the sex falls off. Because after she gets what she wants, she gets the relationship, she gets the wedding, she has the good time, then she realizes, I don't really want sex with this person anymore. So I'm going to start playing the pay to play. Hey, you want sex? Go do this, go do that, go do the honey-do list. When you do that, I'll give you sex, and anything you don't do, you don't get sex. He's still lustful. But in the beginning of the relationship, he realizes the only way I'm going to get sex from this person is I have to fake as though I want to be in a relationship with her. So I am going to, yeah, I want her. Oh, yeah, babe, you're my own one and only. And then when he gets into the relationship, he realizes, like, she doesn't really want sex that often. Now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
So we fall into this hole where they're both faking it. And it's not one person or the other. They're both faking it. He didn't really want to be in a relationship. One of the things I've always said is that a man will have sex with you. Why do men push to have sex early? He's testing out the goods to see, is this something? Because men know that when they spend more time with you, they are going to fall in love with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if the sex is good, he wants to spend more time with you. Because let's be honest, and newsflash for the women out there, the sex ain't that good out there with other women. It really isn't. I would say 19 out of 20 women that I've been with just lay there.
Yeah.
And just like, what the fuck? Like, are you breathing? Are you alive?
I'm laughing because I have said the exact same thing and I've experienced the exact same thing. You're absolutely right.
It's crazy.
And they don't
they think
understand
they're
that.
having good sex.
Yeah.
And we wonder why is it that men, and again, I'm not excusing men, we wonder why men get to a point where they just fuck and roll over and go to sleep or get off of bed and walk away because they don't want to be around you. Because to them, it's like and I don't think they're conscious of it, but it's like a sex doll. Like, there is no enjoyment in this. I needed to get off. Her body was there. She just laid there. She didn't make me feel like she wanted me. She just laid back and let me put in all the work. And then when I was done, I'm like, I don't even fucking care if you came or you didn't come. Not my problem. I'm out.
Right. It's the difference between sex and intimacy, I think.
Yeah,
Is and
absolutely.
when I talk to women about this, they're just like blown away. Like, what? What are you talking about? Men just want to get laid. No, they don't. Sex
No, they
is
don't.
very, very intimate for men. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, there's the hit it and quit it crowd out there. I was one 40 years ago. Freely admit it, okay?
I was one 15 years ago.
I am not that now.
Yeah.
I it's how I connect with someone, and I want that, and if I do have that connection, it doesn't have to be great every single time. But if
No.
it's great the majority of the time, or even good the majority of the time, we're going to be closer. I'm going to feel closer to you. If you're reciprocating to what I'm doing, it means that you care about me as opposed to just laying there trying to get it over with. You're thinking about what you got to order on the grocery list. Women think we don't pick up on that. Oh, we pick up on it.
We
We
pick up on it. Yeah.
They have no clue how much we actually know what's going on. They think we're complete dumb idiots, clueless. He
Who
doesn't.
only think with our dicks.
Yeah, and it's the
So
exact opposite.
I had a rule when I was single. If you don't want me when you're sober, I don't want you when you're drunk.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Right. And so one of the things that I do, and I'll share this with my own personal experience. My wife and I have been married for 12 years. I love waking up my wife with my hands. I love when I wake up because I usually wake up before her. We get up at about 4 o'clock in the morning to do our meditation. So I love to wake up her body by just playing with it. Even if I get a hard on, doesn't mean because I have a hard on, I need to get off. I just enjoy playing with her body.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to see her deep in sleep and her body's just slowly starting to come awake and start moving around and dancing. And I play this game, and she laughs at me. I play this game when I see her starting to get turned on, or if she starts waking up, I'll stop. And I'll let her fall back to sleep, and then I'll start playing with her body again. And I explained to her why I do it. I said, because in your sleep, in your theta state, you are not conscious to be thinking about what do I have to do if he wants sex? Do I have to roll?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need any of that. I love knowing that my touch can turn you on.
Mm-hmm.
That is more satisfying to me than anything else. And what's wonderful about it, and Dan, I know you will agree with me, and a lot of young men don't stop to think about it, but men are going to get to an age like us, and with a relationship that is several years old, where the hot and fast sex is no longer important. It's the intimacy, like you said,
Yes.
is far more important.
Yep.
And that, so whether or not I have a raging hard on or not important. My wife don't care. She goes, I love the way you touch me.
Mm-hmm.
I love when I wake up in morning and see you looking at me. What you say in your eyes or your touch says more to me, tells me how much you want me more than your hard dick ever would.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think back. This is going back 20 whatever years ago. My high school sweetheart, the girl I loved in high school, we never met. We never got together during high school. I literally day one of high school, I fell in love with her. I mean, she walked in the door and I went, bleh, right? Her name was Lori. And then after my first marriage ended, we got together and we actually started having a relationship.
Right.
And yeah, we had sex and all that. That was great. Not saying anything negative about it. But what I got, and this was the lesson I learned at 33, 4 at the time, I loved just putting my hand on her. Yeah. Nothing sexual about it whatsoever, right? Just having a physical connection to her. We might, Star Trek, whatever was big then, that she was into it, I was into it. We would just sit, and all I would do is like put my hand on her thigh or her shoulder or whatever. That meant more to me than any sex.
Absolutely.
It was our way of connecting. And I think, and she would respond to it. There was nothing, I wasn't trying to get laid. She knew Absolutely. I wasn't. It was just natural. And I think that's another thing that's been lost. So many women think, oh, he put his hand on my thigh. He's trying to get
He's looking for something. Yeah.
There are guys that do that, absolutely. But the majority of guys and the majority of the time, it's no, they're looking for, that's an intimate moment to a guy. You hear all the time, this is one you see, and I'm sure you've seen it on things like TikTok. Oh, he comes up and swats me on the ass. Okay, maybe not the best way to do it, but that's a sign of intimacy, right?
You know what my wife says about that, brother?
I want to
The
hear it.
day, the day you stop smacking me on the ass, I know you're no longer in love with me.
That's it, right? That's exactly it. Now, again, it may not be the best way. It depends on the couple. It may be the best way, right? But whatever those moments are, or you go up to her when she's washing the dishes and you just put
Yeah,
your hand on the small of her back, something like that. Those are the moments that I try and tell guys, those are the moments you want. Forget the
yeah,
bedroom. That's the cherry on top of the sundae to me, right?
yeah,
When you have that kind of connection, and I wish women would understand that more, because I think they've lost that men need that. They crave it. Crave it. And when you have that, those are the couples, and it sounds like you're one of them, right? When you have that, that's the magical, that's the quote unquote Disney relationship, which is a whole thing in your book we haven't covered on. But because I'm going to have you back on and go just to talk about that.
anytime, brother.
Yeah.
Anytime, brother.
We do have a few minutes. I do want to kind of close things down with just asking you a couple of questions.
Sure.
So the book's fantastic all the way through, but what would be the one or maybe two biggest, I'll call it benefits or lessons, whatever term you want to use, that men can get out of the book?
So, right out of the gate, even without thinking about it, when we talked about the brotherhood, I think it's absolutely the 52 things that my father should have taught me. That is things that men need to read. It's Look, whether your father's in your life or not in your life, or he didn't have the information to pass to you or whatever, take that with you. Create your own. What are the things you wish your dad didn't teach you? And if you have children, make sure that you're not your dad, or be the best version of your dad. Be the version of your dad that you wish he was to your children. The other thing, brother, is men really need to take this whole, and I wrote quite a bit about the sacred secretion, the understanding what happens to our chi energy, our sexual energy, which is our life force energy. Why we are not nobody. There was no rites of passage for us as men.
Mm-hmm.
In indigenous tribes, there were rites of passage of you becoming a young man, of knowing how powerful this chi energy, and we just spew it around and not realize this is our life force. So we are driven by this need for attraction and sex and lust, and we forget that the important things is, if I can keep that energy in me, I think better, I am better, I can create more, I can think more out of the box, my brain fog clears up. So those two things I think would be the most important things for people to take out of that book.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. I just think, to add to it, I would say that you'll learn more about yourself. And we're all
Yeah,
different, right?
we all are.
But you will learn more about yourself by reading this book. I would just leave it at that, because
Yeah,
it'll make you, it may make you have a come to Jesus moment also. It may be like, holy shit, that's not a good thing, right? And that's fine.
yeah,
That makes you better. You may say, well, here's some good things about me. It makes you think, as I've said from the minute we started this, you've got to go get this book. And it is, like I said before, I'm going to put it top three. I said top five earlier. I'm going to really say top three, because,
and it's practically free. It's
well,
99 cents.
I was going to say, next thing,
Think about that, right?
how the hell can they get the book? Tell them, Kumar.
Go on Amazon right now. Amazon Kindle. It's 99 cents for the next week or so. Go get it. It's the best 99 cents that you've ever spent.
And
And after that, if you want a hard copy, knock yourself out.
I will put links to it in the show notes so people can just go down and click on it and go and get it. And I highly encourage. It'll be, if it was $99, I would tell you to go get it. For 99 cents, it's the best 99 cents you will ever
It's a no-brainer.
spend in your life. It's beyond a no-brainer, honestly. It's that good. And I don't say that lightly, because if I didn't think so, I would not say it. Kumar, I cannot thank you enough for agreeing to come on and talking about that. I know we're a member of the Bald Brotherhood. We are brothers from another mother. We think a lot alike. And I really do want to have you back on the show multiple
It would be
times
an
to
honor,
kind of
brother.
delve into some more of the topics that we didn't really. There's a lot in
Sure.
there that we didn't even touch on, um,
Absolutely.
and really kind of delve into a little bit more because, as I've talked about many times, my goal is to help guys to see how to make their lives better. I give you the information. Kumar's giving you the information. What you do with it is up to you from that point. We can't
Absolutely.
force you to do anything with it, but
Yeah.
by giving you that information to have a better life, trust me, if you take any action at all, you will be better off. Kumar, any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Um, Thank you for having me, brother. This is my very first interview since the book launch last week, and I'm so honored by it. Thank you
Well,
so very much.
again, I truly appreciate you coming on. All right, on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Hey, if you've watched this far, do me a favor. Give me a like, subscribe to the channel. What you saw here in this video, this is what I release every single week, right? A podcast is released Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern U.S. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. It's on YouTube. I'm working on Pandora. I'm working on a few others. And really, what the podcast is about is teaching you or giving you the information you need to have a better life. And as I said earlier during this podcast, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, and I'm going to have my guests on to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, because in the end, that's how you get better. So subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell so that when a podcast goes up, you get notified. And I truly, truly appreciate your watching. I appreciate all the feedback that I get, good, bad, indifferent. It means a lot to me. And if there's things that you want me to cover on this podcast that I haven't, let me know. Comment below. Shoot me an email, menneedtobeheard@gmail.com, because I am more than willing to cover any topic, anything that'll help guys live better lives. On that note, I will see you next week. Everybody, thanks for watching. Come on back to Men Need to Be Heard.